Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're not wearing clothes. Yes.
If I had a nickel for every time I heard that. Uh,
You'd have a lot of nickels. How you doing, dude?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
You know, I think I'm gonna make it.
Hey, that even being able to say that is important.
I'm really lucky that my coping mechanism is to be productive.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have like my shutdown days, but most of the time I'm like, oh, I gotta do something and not feel my feelings.
Yeah, I mean that's the sort of thing you can be proud of these days. You're like, no. The way I handle anxiety and spiraling depression by random happenstance happens to, help out. Uh, but yeah, I figured it was the Sell Your Body show kind of interview type thing. So why not get into the spirit of it, especially since it's happening over a Zoom call? Because uh, I'd say 98% of conference calls, when there's not video involved, this is probably what everyone on the other side looks like. Uh,
Oh yeah, whenever I'm on a call with people and they don't have their video on, I'm like, those motherfuckers are naked and smoking weed and cutting their toenails. Like,
yeah, it's I've gotten very good, as I imagine a lot of people have, about like framing and knowing what will or will not appear on camera. There have been times where I've been on a business call and I've done an anchorman style where like I'm all business on the top half and just no pants, and then I realize I have to get up for something and I just had to do this like awkward sideways shuffle.
just like scooting.
I've also, and this seems a little silly, but I have on my TV right now, which is like vaguely on this side of me and in front of me, a video playing that is just silent warm light. And then I have a window over here, which is cool light, because I do remember having taken theater classes. I'm like, yeah, you get like more oranges and yellows on one side, blues on the other. Really highlights the features of the face, really makes things pop. So that's the kind of production value that is going into this Zoom call.
You
Uh,
do look great. I've done a couple pods and I don't want to roast anybody because everybody's doing great, but you definitely have the best like setup so far, for sure. Like the lighting, you're on like a laptop and not a phone. Like you know what you're doing.
I I've put a not insignificant amount of time into this, and this is usually my framing for like more casual Zoom calls. I'm gonna hit you. You mentioned that I could promote my things, so I'm just gonna hit
Do
that
it.
right up top. Sundays at 9 on Twitch, Cabin Fever Livestream.
Hmm.
uh, I host a fireside chat. So in that, I actually have the laptop turned around facing the TV where a video of a fireplace is playing,
Oh my
and
God, that's so funny.
do an hour long chat. I've got segments now. Like it's slowly evolving as I keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, every Sunday night, 9 p.m. Central. Cabin Fever live stream in general was put together by a group of Houston-based performers as a way for people who are in on the gig economy to still make some money. So there is a PayPal that I believe gets split however it needs to go.
Hmm.
Uh, they might divvy it out based on like what time they got the donation. So if they got the donation during your
Mm.
slot, they assume it's for you. But they also encourage all the performers to put their personal Venmo and PayPal information on the video, especially since so many people who are entertainers, their side gig is frequently being a server of some type, like either a waiter, a waitress, or a bartender. And
Hmm.
so they're really just doing pretty poorly in terms of their income streams. And so it's a way to help out a little. So Cabin Fever live stream hosts a lot of these entertainers. Um, there's a pretty wide array of kind of variety that goes on. I have, I think, one of the more uh, there's a cooking show that happens, so I'd say that is more structured than mine. I have a vague structure. There is the Hot Mess Happy Hour. That is Tifa Tiddlywinks with whoever wanted to be on it with her that day.
Hmm.
Uh, there is there are clowns. There's in the mornings, on the weekends they have mermaid storytelling time. So something for your kids, for the people who are quarantined with kids, they can have
That's so
mermaid stories
cute.
to them. Yeah, it's adorable. I encourage everyone to tune in. I forget exactly when that happens. I want to say 9 or 10 a.m. But yeah, turn in to Cabin Fever Livestream. It's fantastic. So twitch.com/Cabin Fever Livestream. Get us eyeballs if nothing else.
Yeah, hell yeah. I love what they're doing. I've been doing that Showmakers support group. I don't know if I invited it, yeah, or you saw it, but we're talking about like how to adapt. And every time we have a meeting, somebody mentions how much they're loving Cabin Fever live stream and like how they really got on top of it really quickly and they're really helping people out with making money. So it really is the talk of the town. I mean, you know, I haven't been tuning in because I've been working, or not working, but making shit and sleeping and smoking weed and, you know, doing important stuff like masturbating and talking to myself. But
a lot of the segments go really well with smoking weed, and I feel like some of them could probably go well with masturbating too. Do it during my segment. I don't mind. I'm just going to be up there in like a tweed coat or something talking about, you know, the news or corn or something, and you can just be like, yeah, this is actually what does it for me. I've got a fetish for someone who like is trying to make assistant professor.
what's
I've
that
got,
word for people that are only, oh my God. Do you know what I'm talking about? They only like
not yet.
smart.
You're gonna have to give me a little more.
It's people. No, they like brains, but it's not, it's like people that only like smart people.
Sapiosexual.
Sapiosexual. Those are the people that
Yeah,
are masturbating to your set.
that's
Sorry. Sorry to break
whatever.
it to you.
Um, I'm pretty sure the word for people who are masturbating to my set is zero. It's you know it is not a number of people.
That's funny. Well, I love the plug. I love what you're doing. And I know who you are because I've known you
Yes.
for a while. But do you have like a little bio that you could drop for the people that are watching that are seeing you for the first time?
Okay. Oh yeah. I'm Michael Paris, a local Houston, primarily stand-up comedian who is pursuing other projects at the moment. Uh, so you can find me on Twitter, where I believe I'm M. Demetrius Paris. This is really information I should know off the top of my head.
I'm gonna look up your Twitter right now.
Okay, I was gonna look up my Twitter. You go and look at my Twitter. Uh, I think my primary thing that I do is facebook.com/Michael Paris Comedy. If you want to follow me there, that is where I talk about all of my shows, either live or, you know, during this, just completely digital. So facebook.com/Michael Paris Comedy will lead you to all of my other social media. What's my Twitter?
M. Demetrius Paris.
Knew it.
You got it. Are you wearing pasties? Oh my God.
Yes, I wanted to. I know there are rules, and I, as a kind of way to protest inequality, like why are my nipples inoffensive, but your nipples might be offensive.
Thank you.
So since, I mean, I guess this is a private Zoom call, we could do whatever we want, but like because like places this could not be posted if there were female nipples on, figured I'll censor mine as well.
And they're really cute. They look good on you, honestly.
I happen to get one with tassels. I don't know like quite how to do it, but that one got going really well. All right, look at me, I'm a natural.
Have you submitted to Sell Your Body Show yet? Today's the last day. Just dance in those. I don't care what you do. Just I need those on there. Like I need one of that. I need a shot of you flipping that little tassel.
That one a lot better than I thought it would.
I was actually surprised as well.
I've watched a lot of tassel flipping before, but this is the first time I've endeavored to take it on myself, and so I'm very pleasantly surprised and a little distressed about this innate talent that I seem to have.
There's a gnat trying to drink my wine. So you do stand up, you do improv a little bit. How did you get your start? What was the first stage stuff you did? You were a theater kid, right?
Yeah, I was a theater kid, like in school plays in elementary school and things, just getting really into that. Starting about 12 or 13, I want to say, maybe as early as 11, I was doing stand-up for talent shows and things, which was, obviously not very good.
Oh my gosh, I remember the people, this was, before I even had an inkling to do stand-up, but on talent shows, they would do stand-up comedy, and some of it would be like jokes that they found online. A lot of it would be bombing.
I was at least principled enough that I did not do any jokes that I hadn't written.
Ooh, look at you, little baby Michael.
Right, which is why they were universally terrible. But I remember at like 14 or so, I was taking it seriously enough that like I was asking older people, like I'd be at summer camp and like having done the talent show, there were some counselors who like kind of knew a few things about it. And so I was actually talking about logistics and like, so how do I get into this scene?
Mm-hmm.
And which is more difficult when you're under 18 and can't get into any of the places where stand-up is performed. And so I just kind of did it at talent shows for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I was 18 and when I did turn 21 and could go to bars, I just wasn't pursuing it all that, energetically, I guess, or proactively. And then in college, a guy who actually had gone to the same Jewish summer camp saw me, do stand-up for a talent show, and he'd been doing stand-up for a little bit, and he's like, hey, do you go into any like open mics? And I was like, no. And then he was basically like, oh, then you're not really fucking doing this. Like,
that's aggressive, but okay.
Start doing open mics. Rudyard's has a great one on Monday nights. And then within like a year, he wasn't there anymore because he'd gotten successful enough to go to LA and now New York. And now he's got a comedy special because that was Matthew Broussard.
Oh, no way. That's so cool.
Yeah. So I knew him outside of comedy, and he was the one who told me like, hey, that was kind of funny talent show. Do you do this at all?
I always forget that Matthew's Jewish.
Yeah. Rachel has shouted from the other room that we knew him since he was 11. She knew him since he was 11. I was only vaguely aware of him. He's 2 years older than me. Mm-hmm.
Is it hard not to play with them? Story of my life.
Right? Yeah. So that is, I don't think you said, please tell me in detail the entire history of how you got into stand-up, but that's what happened there.
No, that's so cool. And I feel kind of a bond because I remember teaching improv at your wedding, which was technically Jewish summer camp.
Yes, it was. It was held at that very same Jewish summer camp. Matthew Broussard came to that wedding. Mm-hmm. My mother still likes you. She's like, who is that nice girl who taught, the improv game? So yeah, I do some improv and things. I work for the Renaissance Festival, or did work for the Renaissance Festival. It's very unclear where things are going now.
I don't know who I am or what I do anymore. That's cool. Yeah, so tell me about what it's like to work at Ren Fair, because that's like, that's entertainment. It's really immersive. It's very improvisational, and you can also be really drunk.
Your audience can be really drunk. You are not supposed to be really drunk.
You can't get shwasted?
No.
Then I don't want to do it anymore.
Even if your character is supposed to be drunk all the time, you are supposed to be a sober person playing a drunk person.
Oh, okay, cool.
A drunk person method acting. Even like they tell us to like not necessarily play with patrons who are visibly drunk because they're making their own fun. They don't need you. I really like the experience of it because unlike an improv show where you've got people in a room and you're like, hey, you're here, you're doing this. Like the improv show has the benefit of people probably meant to be there, whereas a lot of people go to Ren Fair not expecting to interact with the cast. A lot of people don't even know that there is a cast of characters on site because it's a huge number of people go there. It's a physically vast site, so it's really easy to not run into people.
Or just like not realize that they're a character, like I could see you and Rachel like talking to someone in character and just think that that's who you are. Like, You know, if I'm like far enough away.
But it's actually a thing that's come up as like costuming and things become more and more accessible. It's way easier for patrons to show up at fair looking just as ornate as we do. So there's been a push to like really up the amount of interacting we do, because there's no longer a lot of entertainment value to us standing around and looking pretty, which that was legitimately a thing for a while. It was that if you are playing like a noble court lady in a big ornate dress, you just being there is like, oh man, this is a Renaissance festival. Look at that. But now there's 8 ladies in big court dresses and 7 of them don't work there. So you've got to find a way to stand out. And so you can approach people. And that's what I like better than an improv show, is you can surprise someone with an interaction and use your judgment. You can very quickly kind of tell, like, is this something that they're into, or are you standing between them and their next turkey leg and they want you out of the way? But it's so it's exciting when you find someone who's really into interacting. So you're just kind of like, it's almost like fishing. You put out little lines. It's like, hey, we could have a bit here. And sometimes people are like, oh yeah, and you're like, all right, short bit, done. But sometimes you're like, oh no, we're really gonna play now. And so the enthusiasm you can get from people who weren't expecting that interaction at all is fantastic. But also, like, I feel a lot more free to fail, because if you do a bit that doesn't work at an improv show, you've got that whole same audience watching your next bit being like, well, they failed at that last one. Let's see what happens here. There's so much motion and so much churn at, a Renaissance festival, especially a huge one, that fuck it, you failed in front of that group of 5 people. Well, here's a group of 8. Maybe they'll like it. Learn some lessons from the last one and try it out again. And, maybe you just do the same bit. You find that it works, and you can do the same bit for, 2 hours, because you've got a new audience every 45 seconds or, a couple minutes if it's a longer bit that really holds people. Yeah. So I like that structure a lot better than we have gathered you in a room. It will be rude if you leave. If anyone does anything you don't like.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is like, it's not just better for you because you have that turnover, but also like from an audience perspective, like if they're not, because, you've been in those rooms where half the audience doesn't really know what improv is, or they're like not really about it. And so they don't feel safe to leave. But if you're at the Ren Fair, and you're not about it, you can just be like, nah, dude. And it's like totally cool to just, be like, I'm not going to interact with you or like be a part of this. And so they have more freedom too.
Yeah, there's so many easy ways to bow out, that you can interact with people all day and, not take more than 8 seconds of someone's time if that's not what they were wanting to do.
That's so cool. I love that. And also, I never really thought of how, there is a cast of people at the Ren Fair, and then there's people that are just chilling that just happen to have really ornate outfits. What are some other things that you're doing like consistently? Is it stand up and then Ren Fair?
Artistically, yeah, it's stand up and Ren Fair. Like I've got a day job and everything, which has given me a lot of weird like pseudo survivor's guilt in this kind of economic time.
I feel you.
Time, like,
you're able to work from home?
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
So I have barely left my apartment in months now.
That's super cool. So what do you have, like, how do you write? Do you have a creative process? For improvisers, like, I've noticed sometimes there's like a layer of improvising that comes on stage, but I feel like I've seen you do a little stage play, but mostly you have a consistent set. Do you have like a writer's process that you lean on?
It's not a super structured process. I do prefer to lean on pre-written material, especially because a lot of my jokes, I feel like they do better if I have specific examples or things. And so if I'm on stage, I can't be like, making a joke about types of corn and then be like, wait, I want to see how many types of corn there are, and then like take a moment. Whereas if I think of that beforehand, I can look it up. Did you know there are 83 types of corn? I didn't look it up for this. I made that up. But in general, some of my jokes I feel do better if I can do a little research for them. So I like pre-writing, and the typical way that takes place is I will think of the kernel of a joke, like the main premise.
Staying with the corn metaphor.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, there are 6 types of corn.
I appreciate that. For
you find a kernel.
For more corn-related facts, tune into the Fireside Chat on Cabin Fever Livestream on Twitch Sunday at 9.
I'm going to tune in and just check out your corn bits.
So, I don't remember. Oh, my writing process. Yeah, I will typically make either a text note or a voice note in my phone, which will usually be a very disorganized sort of approach to an idea. And then I'll either just be thinking about it and have it percolating, or I'll set aside some time, like I'm going to write for the next 10 minutes. And so I'll bring up that bit of a joke and see what pops into my head when I write it out. And so I'll have, a physical notebook that I will have a more detailed version of the joke in. I don't know if it's true, but something that I've heard is that there is a distinct neurological difference between when you write something out and when you type it out, that it uses different parts of the brain.
I have heard that.
Writing something does a lot of spatial awareness, and it gets stored differently, and it kind of stimulates things differently. So I don't know if that really affects my process, but it's nice to have notebooks and things to kind of
read. Also, don't you have a shower notebook?
It is a notepad of waterproof notes, and
that's so fucking cool.
Yeah, because you're in the shower and you're like, this is a great idea, and oh my god, I have no way to record it right now. I mean, at this point, waterproof phones are becoming more and more of a thing. Which means we are close culturally to returning back to the 90s, where it was funny to push someone in a pool. So that's a cultural shift we've had. Is it used to be funny to push people into pools,
and it's gotten kind of mean
now. Like, how put together are they? Or they're just hanging out. Like, they'll be wet for a little bit, but they'll be fine. Like, if they're not in fancy clothes, it's okay. And then, like, it got to the point, especially with smartphones, that you push someone into a pool, you're like, hey, you just cost me $1,800.
I like that that's the priority with I would love to believe that the phone development was specifically for the people that just really want to push a motherfucker in a pool. Like,
it's probably for the people who got pushed into pools anyway and were tired of losing $2,000 every time someone at a party forgot that phones were a thing.
That's true. The nerdy people that were being pushed in the pool are probably more likely to have had
Where do you think the innovations are coming from?
Yeah, definitely not the fucking pool pushers. That's hysterical. So what do you feel like your longtime goals are? Are you like, do you think you're like a career performer? Like, is stand-up what you pursue? Do you do any theater, like acting anymore? Or like, what's that?
It has been a very long time since I've been in like a theater production, like a play or a musical. I think about getting back to it sometimes, but I don't know that I will.
I always do that. I was a theater kid too, and I'm like, I should audition for something. And I just like never really get around to it.
My favorite part about being a theater kid, like there are two big parts of it. It's everyone pays attention to you sometimes, like when you're on stage, and you hang out with other theater kids. Well, stand up, I get to be in a situation where everyone pays attention to me. And working in Renaissance Festival, I get to be around other theater kids. So
it fulfills that desire. It's mostly like attention based.
Other than a few like scripted like burlesque shows and things that I've been part of, I haven't had to memorize a line in so long, or at least anything I didn't write.
Oh my gosh, do you remember the fucking Probably a Show?
I do remember Probably a Show.
You fucking killed it at Probably a Show. That was like an old sketch show. It had 3 runs.
Yep. It was fun. I liked it.
It's hard work. It's more work than it's worth for me at least. You know, if
Mhm.
someone else had a sketch show and they were like, they wanted to run a writer's room and like organize a bunch of fucking, you know, people with day jobs, like
Yeah. Yeah, I do not envy that.
I've noticed all the best writers are, and I mean, it's a function of intelligence, obviously, but all of the people that are committed and good at writing normally have a day job or have like some kind of
Really?
responsibility outside of comedy, so they can't, like, the function of their intelligence is that it's useful in the world, and so they can't use it for this thing that doesn't matter at all.
How dare you have value to people other than me?
Yeah, story of my life. That's funny.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that, I
no,
mean, have you like, that's probably the last time you memorized a line, because that, well, how long ago was that? Like 3 years ago? Ugh.
yeah, I've been in uh, some shows since then where it's like a series of sketches where I memorize like 3 lines or something at a time. It's fine.
Yeah.
Uh, I've done a few things with Dem Dem Dames.
Oh yeah, they always have like an element of theater to their stuff.
Yeah, there's frequently a plot line kind of connecting the various vignettes in which someone is taking their clothes off. Uh, that's my function. There's people that you want to see take their clothes off, and then there's me being like, and here's plot. Uh,
I watch it for the plot.
um, so yeah, I did that, which that's been great. That's led to fun stories like that time I was drinking on top of a broken down clown bus full of strippers. That's something for another time.
That's a whole nother pod.
Yeah.
I've noticed you do really well. This is why you always get on Sell Your Body Show, is you do really well with mixed crowds. And I think it has, I mean, one of the things is that your jokes are a little like more highbrow, not to offend you, but they are like, you know, like a drunk 3 a.m. room is not going to be the same as like people that are coming for like a 1.5 hour show, you know, so you really blend in with that audience. Have you noticed like a difference? Like, do you have a preference about where you do stand up and how you do stand up, or any sketch stuff?
Oh, definitely. I've had other people point out to me, like, I will frequently do well in rooms that usually more popular comics do poorly in. So
Oh
there's
yeah, for sure.
usually an open mic at Neil's Bar, which is a very nerdy
Oh,
crowd,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so a lot of comics like really struggle with that, and they didn't like the fact that like people were playing board games or video games and not listening to them. But like I know these types of people that they can do 8 things at once in their head. They're playing video games and listening to your jokes. And if you pay attention, you can see them laugh when you hit a punchline,
Mm.
but not if you don't see them laugh and you start attacking them immediately. Or like when there was the beta bracket comedy contest in Market Bar, I remember one of the comics being like, I can't do like people who are paying $30 for a dinner. I have nothing in common with.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but my favorite commentary that I've gotten, and I don't think it was meant as a compliment. I also don't think it was meant as an insult. I think it was just something someone said to me because they were just like, yeah, when I get on stage, I like to make myself look really dumb really quickly so that
Mm-hmm.
the audience gets to feel like they're smarter than me. You never do that. All right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I resonate with that feeling actually, like the making yourself dumb part,
Mm-hmm.
because there is like, I think that when people see someone on stage, there's like this kind of like, oh, you think you're better than me? That like that some people kind of like embody when they're at their dinner or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like what you offer is the opportunity to like allow the people that are in the audience to like be in on it with you, and it has to do with that thing you have about over describing. And I think that that's funny. It's always funny, like the Granny Smith apple joke. But it like gives people the opportunity to feel smart with you, and so but I don't, like I don't feel like there's like a level of like, everyone has their own alchemy on how to do that.
Yeah, I probably should. I'd probably do better at stand up if I put uh, more thought into not each individual joke, but how my jokes go and like what works and what doesn't in a big broad sense. Not like, okay, should I tell this joke this way? Should I tell it that way? But in a more grand big picture sense of like how does my comedy work. Like one of my least favorite questions that I'm asked, other than what time are you on, come to the whole show. Just if I tell you I'm going to be in a show, come to the entire show.
People that ask that never fucking come, by the way.
I get it if like, hey, that's actually right after when I have other plans, so I might arrive 10 minutes late, and if you're the first person on, then I'm going to miss. But like usually it's people like, when do I catch your bit? Catch all the bits. But my second question that I get a lot that isn't the people's fault is like, how would you describe your comedy? I'm like, I try to avoid it when I can. I try to avoid needing to. I sometimes what I'll go with, it's generally like erudite dick jokes. And if they're like, what's erudite? I'm like, I think you should go to another show.
I don't know what erudite means. What does erudite mean?
Well, it's context clues. It's highbrow dick jokes.
Oh, thank you. Excellent. Well, now I can use that for later.
And it's not a great descriptor of a lot of my jokes, but like I don't know how other people answer that question either. Like, how would you describe your comedy? Excellent. Just come see it. It's great. Trust me.
Yeah, I've never really had, I mean, you know, I don't do a stand-up a lot anymore, but I do think that like what happens with, and this, you know, is kind of an experience that I've had, is like people will just say like, oh, you remind me of the one female comic I've ever seen. So it's like I have no, like, yeah, like I talk about, it's like the antithesis of dick jokes. Whatever dick jokes aren't. Do you consider yourself primarily a writer or primarily a performer?
It's hard for me to pick one. Like one of the reasons that I love stand-up is because it's all me. Like when I was in stage shows and things, I, you know, there are other things going on. You're saying someone else's words. There's a director telling you how to say them. There's other people you play off of. So, you know, maybe you don't get to be in as good of a show or something because someone else fucked up. And it also frustrates me. Like, I think it would be very irritating if I wrote a bunch of jokes or things and someone else was doing them. Like, it's great in little doses when like I give someone a tag or something and I see it work on stage. I'm like, yeah, but part of me is like, yeah, that was me.
It only has value to you because you know that you did it. Like,
so that's what I like about stand-up is I get to be so selfish about it because it's all me and I get to fail or succeed on my own, which is exciting and of course nerve-wracking because if you do a show and you bomb, that's not well, okay, the script was bad or the director was bad or I did great, but the person playing opposite me like really sucked. Like, no, I wrote it, I did it. If people don't like that, they just don't like me. That's all me up there.
Yeah, it's like a really egocentric thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I prefer it that way, I think, to where my successes are entirely my own and my failures, I am forced to own them because sometimes you can be like, that crowd was too drunk or something. Or, if it weren't for that one guy, it would have been a good show. But usually you just go away from a bad show like, well, I need to reevaluate everything.
My whole life is a lie. Yeah, I actually never, that's so interesting that you say that because I don't think I would have made that connection. But I don't think it's necessarily about me like having all the attention, but I really do want to be in control of my environment. And I think that when you're in like a theater situation, and that's what's so stressful, like I love improv, but it is sometimes kind of stressful because there is so much randomness and there's so much less control over like what the other people are doing. And there's something about the authority that being the one person with the microphone gives you that it's like, even if the audience is kind of unruly, you still have like a higher level of control, you know, because I love crowd work. How do you feel about crowd work? Do you integrate that a lot? Is it something that you work on?
I need to work on it more. I don't like doing it nearly as much. It's one of those things that like when I see other comics who are good at crowd work, it inspires a lot of like awe on my part because that's something I can't do nearly as well. So when I see someone kill it, I'm like, you're amazing. but yeah, I like to research. I like to pre-plan, and that's probably one of my biggest weaknesses. If I'm like doing a bit and then someone does something that like you're like, okay, that needs to be commented on, but fuck, what? Like, I like to think I'm quick on my feet, but sometimes it just doesn't come through, and then it can really tank the energy of a show.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, rather than take the gamble of I'm going to try to say something about this and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't, be like, let me just railroad right through this and get
Mm-hmm.
people focusing on my material again. So like, I think it's great that other comics are good at crowd work. I think it is a huge skill that I need to work on. Uh,
But I think you're totally right about the gamble part because, like, I've seen it go so south, you know? Like, sometimes people can bring it back, and sometimes with crowd work, it takes a while for them to bring it back. And that is my fear, is like wasting my whole set, you know,
yeah,
talking to one fucking person.
yeah. There's that, and then like, if you've got material that you like, uh, I'm not going to go out as far as say material that is good, but if you got material that you like, that
Let's
you
not make any
like,
assumptions about the quality of it, but you
yeah,
like it.
it's, I don't want to say a crutch, but like it makes it that much harder, I think, to be like, let me work on crowd work, which I don't like, which I don't feel as good about,
Mm-hmm.
which will actively take away from this other thing that I know I enjoy at least when it goes well,
Yeah.
and that I feel like has a better chance of going well. So it's it's like a safety net that you've got to like, you're never going to learn to be good because you want to go back to your comfort zone, that safe place of like, no, but I wrote this great joke about dragons. And
That's so on brand for you, by the way.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, it does seem like, but also there are people that are very attached to the formula, which I feel like you and I can probably resonate with. And then there are other people that just like aren't as attached. And that's the thing about like the flavors of comedy, you know, like
Yeah,
some people are going to really enjoy the formula of it. And some people really don't care. They just want to like have a laugh, you know, like they don't connect as much with like the quality of the material.
or yeah, or at least the kind of scripted nature of it. Like, I think that's a side effect of being a theater kid and coming at this from a
Mm,
theater background, as
yeah.
opposed to people who came at this from a background of bullshitting with their friends and finding out
Those
that
are the
theater.
two qualities that will lead to stand up, either like theater and stage experience or bullshitting with your friends experience. And when those two things clash, it like creates a really weird green room.
It can, but it's a lot of fun. But that, I think, is one of the things. And so you're going to get better at the things you practice, and you're more likely to practice the things that you're more familiar with. So the theater kid types are going to be more comfortable with scripts, even if we're the ones who wrote them. And so we're going to work on that. And like, how
Yeah.
do I just play with my delivery? How do I tweak this? Uh, Whereas the people who I think come from it from a more like just kind of kicking around and hanging out have a much looser approach. And so we hit the roadblock of like sounding too rehearsed and not knowing what to do with crowd work when something happens that you have to address. And they, they're frequently trapeze artists without a net, where if they
Mm,
fail, they can fail really hard and not have any plan to get back from it, because if you're riding the vibe of the room, when that vibe turns south, I always find it more helpful to be like, okay, well, I've got material that applies to some things, so I'm going to try that, as opposed to they already don't like me and now I have to come up with something in real time.
yeah, when you're in that kind of like stressful, like, because you know, sometimes hecklers can get kind of attacky,
Oh yeah.
which is like, I'm here for you, honey. Like, remain calm. When you're doing cabin fever stuff, are you pre-writing anything? What's that cabin fever process like for you?
Yeah. Uh, it is an hour-long show, so I am writing.
It's an hour?
Yes.
Oh my God, I cannot imagine.
So I'm writing a ton of, and some of it is like talking about news stories and things, which just describing things like what's going on before I offer commentary on it. That eats up some time. And so I solicit comments from anyone watching so they can ask questions, they can chime in, and then I respond. But there's a significant lag. So it'll be
like
like
between the
45
question
seconds.
asker and the when you can answer it? Is that the lag?
Well, yeah, because so I say something, and then anyone watching it over the internet, anyone watching the broadcast can see it like, I really want to say it's on the order of like 45 seconds to a full minute later. So a mistake that I made in some of the first episodes was I'd pause and I'd be like, anyone have anything to say about that? I'd give it 20 seconds and I'd be like, I guess not. And then I move on. And then, in another minute, people would be like, but this, that, and the other thing, because they just saw me pause.
Yeah.
Whereas, in my personal timeline, it was a while ago. So I try to make it clear throughout the episodes, like interrupt me whenever. If you have something to say about a segment I did 35 minutes ago, just say it now. I'll find a break in what I'm doing and then I'll respond to your comment, because why not?
What's the viewership like on that? Like 10 to 20?
I actively don't check.
Oh, smart.
That is, I know that a lot of the commenters are the same. And you can recognize some people like, I know who you are because of these questions you're asking. So I don't want to look, because while it will feel cool if I, if I look at it and there are 20 people watching, that would be great. But I feel like it's much more likely I'll look at it and there will be 3 people watching, and I don't want to know that. So I do not check my viewership. I don't keep an eye on that. I have someone else looking at the comments. Rachel looks at the comments and is off screen, like raising her hand when there's something that someone says. So she sees the screen. I don't even see the screen. I don't particularly want to at this point, because I feel like it is much more likely I'm going to see a number that goes like, oh, why do I do this?
Yeah, but it's like if you're thinking about a room when you go to do stand-up and you're at a bar, it's like that same feeling of like having to sort of overcome this bitterness that like not enough people are there. Like that's why I haven't really enjoyed doing a lot of live stuff. I've done some pre-recorded content, but when I go live, even though I know that a lot of people are going to watch it later, it's like I really feed off the energy. And even though it's not energy, there's like a little eyeball with a number next to it. And that like really informs my performance.
See, and yeah, even that can help. And I've heard about stand-up shows that people are doing where they encourage the audiences to not talk but leave their mics on so that you can hear laughs, which, other than, again, the lag problem, I don't know how they deal with that. Seems like a good idea, because it is killer. One of the first things I did with Cabin Fever Livestream was a 30-minute stand-up set, and that feels so different and empty and hollow when you're doing it to a screen that people aren't, even if someone writes like, ha, 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 ha. First of all, you have to like look.
Wait.
To wait for it to be available. You have to like take a minute and look and read it. I'm mostly just staring at my own video. Even now, like I kind of shift my video closer to my camera so that I can maintain the illusion of eye contact when really I'm watching my tiny video. Like I look at you sometimes, but it's mostly like,
No, I feel you, dog.
It's heartbreaking in a way that like I'm trying to decide how melodramatic I want to be with this, but let's not go full melodrama. But like if you go to a place you love where like it's usually bustling and you see it empty, which is a thing a lot of people are experiencing, and you just kind of feel that hollowness of like, oh, that thing that I loved isn't here right now. Like it's got the physical kind of resemblance to it, but that's not what's going on. And that's how it feels to do. It doesn't matter how many people, it's not that many, but even if it were a lot of people who message you afterwards and like, that was a great show, because I was optimistic at first. I was like, oh man, I have so many people who are like, oh, I'm out of town, or even like I'm on the outskirts of town, I live too far away, where you can be like, hey, everything's the same distance apart now. Like when someone's across the country or across the street, other than time zones, they're just as impossibly far away. So people can finally check out my shows. First of all, they by and large do not. all the people.
That is so funny. I haven't even thought about that yet, but you are so right. I mean, like, I'm about to do a poly podcast, and so, like, some of the people that do live far away are like, oh my gosh, like, I've been waiting to see you live, and they're excited about it. But these other motherfuckers that were like, oh, I really wish I could make it to your show. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a few people who it's like, oh man, you're in a different state, and you got to see my show, and you talked to me about it, and that's awesome. But by and large, no. Everyone's thing about like, oh, I would, but it's on a weeknight. Oh, I would, but it's so far away. Oh, I would, but it's late, and things like, it's pre-recorded. You can watch it later if you want to. You live here basically, because here's the internet now. No,
we all live on the internet now.
Yeah, I live on the internet, which is why it should be a utility. But
thank you very much. Political action.
Political action. That's what's going on here, you guys.
I love the pasties.
Political pasties. Oh God. Oh, hold on. My yellow screen video ran out.
Oh, that's so funny.
Like, here's something you were watching before that. Oh God. No, just stop.
That's fine. I'm pretty sure my can you hear the bass upstairs?
Not really.
Yeah, my upstairs neighbors, they play bass, and so I can always, like, the walls vibrate, and I just have to act like everything's super normal. That's fucking cool, dude. I'm, like, really excited about Cabin Fever. Everyone is talking mad shit about it. I should, like, hop on. I've tuned on during the day, which is normally when my active hours are, and people are just, like, you know, doing shit.
Yeah, check it out. It can get weird at night in a fun way. And yeah, you or any performers that want to be part of it. I know that they were focusing on Houston-based performers, and I think they opened it up to like any Texas-based performers can apply to be on it. I don't know if they're going to open it up past that, but they're super happy to get more content. So reach out to them. If you want, you can reach out to me and I'll pass your things along to them. But it is definitely worth checking out as an audience, and it is worth checking out as a performer. Like I said, you know, they're all like, hey, put your Venmo on here, like find a way for people to tip you and give you money, you know, when you can't necessarily do that.
Yeah. That's really cool. So we can find you. We talked about your Facebook. We talked about, did we plug Instagram? Are you on Instagram at all?
I am on Instagram. That is one of the things that happened during this is I finally got an Instagram. I haven't quite decided what I'm using it for. I post some funny things, but like the other day I figured out how to make a stereogram. Like there are those photos where it's two very similar photos side by side taken about an eye's distance apart. So if you cross your eyes and they overlap, it's 3D.
I don't even know how to do that shit. So follow M. Demetrius Paris for more stereograms or whatever the fuck. What's your handle?
Michael Demetrius Paris. A lot of people are like, hey, here's a screen name. Like, you know, funny clown, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, nope, here's my full legal name, everybody.
Is your middle name actually Demetrius?
Oh, yes. My middle name is absolutely actually Demetrius. It is not in any way a stage name. I like to say that it's the second coolest middle name I've ever heard. My father is James Aristotle Paris.
Oh, that's so badass.
And you know what's funny? You know why his middle name is Aristotle?
Why?
He's named after his father. My grandfather's legal name was Aristotle Paris. So that side of the family's Greek. It's totally legit. And so I get to be like, I'm a direct male descendant of Aristotle. And people are like, the Aristotle? I'm like, and Aristotle.
You know what that just did? That just gave me permission to name my child Aristotle.
Are you?
That just allowed me to do that. Man, you know, thank God. I've been trying to get knocked up for a while. And honestly, if I had gotten knocked up for the quarantine, I would have been very upset with myself because this is not a good time to be pregnant.
All right, that's where we're going with that bit.
Well, we made it past 45, so thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to plug before we go? It was twitch.com/Cabin Fever Livestream.
Yep.
Okay.
And so that's the big one. I'm sure they're doing things right now, both as we speak and whenever this is released. They usually have content going. Sundays at 9 is my fireside chat. I encourage
Okay.
people to tune into that and to comment and contribute and ask questions. And yeah, I have my Instagram that people can look at if they want a break from my jokey jokes. There's facebook.com/Michael Paris Comedy. And there's my Twitter handle, which I've already forgotten over the course of this video because I'm terrible at this.
It's
So thanks
first
for
name, middle
having me.
name, last name, because I just looked it up and I'm following you. Michael Demetrius Paris.
That's Instagram.
Cool. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
hanging out. I appreciate this so much.
I appreciate you too. So have a good one.
You too. Can I get like one more little...
Maybe.
Oh!
That's incredible. Okay. What a note to end on.
All right. Bye forever, dude.